This is Rohan Plummer. He is a customer advocate for State of Decay 2. And the first time we ever talked on the stream about customer advocacy, it was actually with Joe Swarner. It was before he even worked at Undead Labs. He was a Microsoft guy who had been assigned to our team to do customer advocacy for, for our game. And we brought him in and we interviewed him. And later on, we ended up hiring the guy full time, brought him in, made him the co host of the stream. And so he's had a storied career moving on into being on the design team now for State of Decay 2. But the customer advocacy still has to happen. Just because we're not going to ask Joe to do like 3 different jobs at once. And so we hired a new customer advocate, and that is Rohan Plummer. How you doing, Rohan?
I'm doing really well. I'm really loving being here right now.
Well, we are loving having you because your job is so essential to the process. Whenever we release an update in particular, but also just in general, having someone like you on the team is just like an indispensable part of our process. But I should probably ask you to explain to the audience what your job actually is. They can probably figure out some of it from the name customer advocate, but a lot of them weren't here when Joe explained it for the first time, and so we should let you sort of pitch them on like what your job is and what it's for.
Sure, absolutely. I'm still figuring out what I do here every single day. So I would say it's a little bit like anyone familiar with like the customer service side of ticketing service. That's a big part of it, obviously. A little bit of QA, that's also a part of it, and a little bit of marketing as well, right? Being a part of this stream is a part of my job, right? But definitely something I volunteered for. It's something that I enjoy, and something that it's very much like I don't know. It's just like I get to be flexible and kind of dip my hand in and wear many, many hats. And but a good portion of it is just looking at those requests coming in, those tickets coming in, and I have a huge notebook full of all the issues that you guys write in about, and just very much like then I go to our folks who work on the game and say, hey, these are the most significant things. Here are the game breaking things. Here are like the immersion things. Here are like the scripting things, and this is how we should probably maybe prioritize going forward. So that's really a big portion of my job.
So yeah, so when you talk about the tickets coming in, where they're coming in from is support.stateofdecay.com. I put a link above your head right there so people know what we're talking about. So if you go to support.stateofdecay.com, one of the options you have there, among several other things, is to lodge a support ticket. And so when a support ticket, when somebody clicks that link and they say, okay, I'm going to write a support ticket, what happens to that ticket? They write up, oh, this is what's happening to me in the game. Maybe they attach some media or something to show you what's going on, and that goes to you. What happens next?
What happens is we depending on the issue being related to us, it's usually we'll ask a few troubleshooting questions. We'll see if it's something as nefarious as the crashing that occurred, and really really prioritize what is really important in that moment. The tickets do come in through a secondary system for those who might be familiar with like Zendesk. So it's just very much like constantly getting bombarded and trying to manage all of it as best as we can here on our end.
Okay, so you're like gathering all these tickets, sorting them. You're reading every single one of them. Like you are the one person that is reading every single one of these things. It's not like we've got like a phone bank like full of people or something like that. It's just you. And so yeah, so you're sorting through all of these, you're prioritizing them, and then I remember when I was the design director on State of Decay 2, we had this regular weekly meeting with Joe back when he was in your position, where basically he would just bubble up to us whatever the most important stuff that was going on with the audience. He would always like bring everything up and advocate, and that's like part of why your name why the job title is what it is. He would advocate for the customers. Like a lot of people. And people should bear this in mind. When you're writing a support ticket in, you're not writing directly to say me, like, or Brant. Like, if you're mad at one of us for something that we did in the game, your ticket is not going to us directly. So all of your urges to like rant and rave, they're not hitting us. You're not damaging us at all. What you're doing is sending them to Rohan, whose job it is to be on your side. And so like your entire job is to basically be the voice in the room that's saying, hey, the customers are experiencing this and we need to take it seriously. And if we're all off on our own little world worrying about the features that we want to build and we're up in dreamland, your job is to say, no, the customers said this. And we don't get to sort of move on and ignore that stuff. So you're on their side.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always even for every person who curses me out in 3 different languages, I am at the end of it, I just try and understand that, I try to understand how much art means to somebody and how it can impact someone, and have a lot of empathy and go like, I don't know if this is the only game you play. I don't know if this is how you unwind. I don't know if, this game helped you get through a messy divorce, or, so for me, I because people love this game, and it's so refreshing to see this studio just be so community focused, that I really internalize it and embody it, and try to go like, yeah, you just cursed me out in Russian and it's cool. But I do understand that, hey, you're actually having a problem, and my job at that point is to just, try and de-escalate you from maybe never curse at me again. But also to just go, I recognize that you have a problem, and here's if we already know about it and we're working on it, or here's like, oh, that is so serious or so important to you that this is on the list of things that we have to get to as soon as possible. I know if anyone's been in the chat, I've been really focusing on the accessibility side of like what's happening in the game. And I definitely see the stuff with the translations. I definitely see the inability to, change languages, or at least change subtitle languages. And I can definitely see where it feels very frustrating for something that seems very basic, but, maybe wasn't considered, or maybe, there's just different ways to approach it. And so that's been like a huge, huge focus of mine since I've been here. And I will continue to like work on things like that whenever I see stuff like that, because that's the stuff that I'm passionate about. That's a part of my values.
I love the way you described your thought process there, because I think, if somebody was writing like a job description for what you're doing, they should probably include like the patience of Job like among the qualifications. But it sounds like you've actually thought through like, like a way to think about the feedback that you're getting on behalf of the rest of us on the team, that sort of like, it gives you the ability to sort of like to step outside of the feeling of like, oh, somebody's yelling at me, which can naturally, I think in most people, engender sort of a hostile, angry response, or a frustrated or a sad or depressed response. But I love the way you described how you sort of separate yourself from that. You're just like, okay, let me think about this person's perspective. Why are they upset? Why are they angry? And once you understand that, it gives you the power to like to let it roll off your back, and then you can just sit there and be a professional and talk them through the problem and get them a solution a lot of the time, which I think there are so many. I mean, your job absolutely requires it, but I feel like everyone's job would probably get smoother if people were better able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a definitely a learned skill from prior employment history. To definitely, I just don't let things like that bother me, because I know that in that moment it's just a real emotional, visceral response, and that at the end of it, it comes from a place of, you just really love this game, and I can't be mad. I can't be too upset at the passion. If it gets a little too crazy, I might put you in timeout for a little bit, but for the most part, it's always just acknowledgement and just letting you know, like, I get you. And it's never, we try to avoid as many of the generic macro emails, like as much as we can, like if we can. It's always going to be, I will always try and personalize a response as best as I can. And just let you know, like, this is not a computer behind this screen. This is not an automated response. This is just me. It's just me and the occasional helper trying to help you out.
Yeah, I think that is actually something that, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on here, partly just because your job is interesting and it's cool to hear your perspective on it, but also like I think people in our community should see the face behind this process. A lot of the folks who are engaged with this stream are our most engaged players, people who are most likely to be reporting bugs. And I want them to understand, like, you are a real human being on the other side of this. A couple of them, like, I did get one comment in the chat. I don't really know the answer to this. David Devine was asking about, like, saying that, like, that I think that they had at some point gotten like a generic form letter back in response to a support ticket. Is there a generic form letter that comes out when you first submit the ticket, but then there's a more personalized response later once you've engaged with it and figured it out? I don't know how it works. I'm just asking.
If they're talking about like just a kind of like a generic response, like when the crashing was happening, just to give perspective, when the crash happened, we got an influx of about 1,000 tickets. So as much as so if you got a response to it where it's just like, hey, we are very much aware of this and we're working on a fix, that's kind of the only way. That's the only way I can respond to you, because I don't program. I'm not in the trenches with everyone else who is working so hard and tirelessly to make sure that the crashing stops happening. So all I could do at that point is just let you know, like, hey, we've received your ticket. We are very much aware of it. but there's really no new information to give you or a workaround because it literally is just happening. Yeah. Now, I was looking at the question, and the way I interpreted it was they were asking about like ticket number and then like additional information. And I'm not sure if that was something that Zendesk did before. I'm currently working in the beta of Zendesk, so I don't know if that is something that has been taken away and that was something that was already there, or if that's something I'll need to manually add myself. But I'm more than happy to make it a lot more formal if it helps you feel better about it and makes things a little more organized. Because for us, the ticket numbers and things are usually attached to those responses, just for perspective.
So you all just saw it live, folks. Rohan just received feedback from someone, and he just listened, took it seriously, and offered them a solution. Go to support.statedecay.com and send Rohan tickets if you're running into problems. That's the kind of response you're gonna get.